Hello, selectors, and welcome back to the Life Burst podcast. Surprise! It's not Andrew, it's Tiffany, and today we're going to be going into a very special deck tech, and I can't wait to tell you guys all about it. As you guys know, we're going to be going into Vertex Diva very soon. So, speaking of surprises, we're going to be talking about Ott and the Ancient Surprise deck that is coming out. I cannot wait. I feel like I've been waiting so long for this. If you guys are a regular listener to the Life First podcast, you will know that I am a huge fan of this team. I don't know. I mean, I do know, but I just love this team. So let's take a look at her, right? Like, this is the new Ott that's going to be coming out. She is much better than the old one because she's got a lot of abilities going on that are much improved from the last one. So let's take a look at them and we'll go through the rest of the deck list. Okay, so here's just a quick layout of the rest of the deck. We've got a pretty good spread. We'll be going over those in more detail. So the reason why I'm going to be really excited about playing Ancient Surprise, first of all, it's my favorite team, as I've already said, but also this is going to kind of bring out a new way to play this game. As you know, there's a lot of different decks in the meta right now, but I do feel like the at mid-range deck is going to be a little bit unique with how it's handling its Lyrigs and its Signies, and especially with the introduction of Worlds Reverse. So let's go ahead and jump into what we're going to be expecting exactly in the Lyrig deck. So here we've got all of the different Lyrigs that we're going to be using. We'll pop up to Ott in a second because the mainstay of this deck is going to be Worlds Reverse, which is going to be coming out. It's first of all, it's a main phase piece, which is, very typical. Costs 1, but its abilities last you the duration of the game, which means that you can pay and play this on your very first turn, and it will last you the entirety of the rest of the game. Why is this special? Because it says, auto, once a turn, during your turn when a Signy enters your field, choose one of the following, and there's 3 different options. 1, if the Signy that enters the field is red, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 8,000 or less. Pretty good. Cheap removal. We like that. Number 2, if the Signy that enters the field is blue, draw a card. Hey, free draw card. Number 3, if the Signy that enters the field is green, enter charge 1. Hey, free enter charge. You guys get where I'm going with this. This is going to be a really wonderful staple for this rainbow deck. Ancient Surprise really does, it's got a theme of liking a lot of different classes of Signy, different types of Signy, and of course a very nice even spread of green, red, and blue. And this new Worlds Reverse is really going to be the staple of your deck. So following up with that, in our second piece, we've got Ancient Echo, which actually came out in the first set with the rest of the Ancient Surprise team. This one is a main phase timing piece, costs 2. Use conditions as you have a red, a blue, and a green Lyrig on your field. Noted that it's not actually Ancient Surprise piece specifically, so if you have a dream team or a different team in mind, you would be able to use this piece with them. So where does this piece fall into our lineup, basing it off of Worlds Reverse? Well, this one says, vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 10,000 or less, draw 2 cards, and all Signy on your field get +3. So all of those abilities are going to be playing into red, blue, and green's abilities, as already stated in Worlds Reverse, with just the change up being in World Reverse you're enter charging for green, and in Ancient Echo you're using the typical green's ability to pump your Signies. So instead of having to pick one or the other, this is a really good option for you if you just need to give yourself a little bit of an extra push and still play into the direction of this deck. Now what do we got for the assists? We've got Towel and Umer. For Towel, we've got Towel Screech. If you've played Ancient Surprise before, you know that this one's a bit of a staple. So this one's going to be your banished target Signy on opponent's field 8,000 or less, draw a card and discard a card. Not bad. We do like some early free removal, especially with 8,000 or less. That will pretty much wipe out anything in your turn 1 to turn 2 Lurig grow phase. So for Towel Hangout, this is a new one actually. This is a new Towel that's going to be coming out in the Vertex Diva set. It says it's main phase and attack phase timing, of course. We do love to interrupt our opponents, don't we? Enter Vanish target Signy in your opponent's field, and enter discard up to 3 cards, draw cards equal to the number of cards discarded this way. So the important thing to note about this one is that it is attack phase timing and it only costs 2, which is pretty great, and there's no additional cost for discarding up to 3 cards and drawing out your number. The only thing you're really doing is you're doing a little bit of hand filtering, which will come in handy later on in the game, especially when you get into those later turns past turn 3 to find Signies that you need. And of course, Vanish target Signy in your opponent's field with no stipulations or conditions is excellent. So heading over to Umer, we've got Umer Draw. Draw 2 cards. Loves it. Love to see it. Typical blue. And then Umer Down, which is different than what I would typically pick for Umer, which would be Umer Clear. However, Umer Down works better in this deck because the blue is giving you a whole lot of defense, whereas the red's going to give you removal, blue's going to give you option and defense with the drawing and the downing. So here we've got it. It says attack phase timing, main phase and attack phase timing. It only costs 1 to grow, which your enter ability will be down target Signy on your opponent's field. Not bad. But you can pay an additional blue and colorless to down an additional Signy. Many of you will recognize that this is very similar to Madoka's assist line, where it's a little bit more expensive because you'll be able to down 3 different things, but this is a pretty good close second, especially since we are being a full team. Let's move on to the next slide. We're going to go into, actually let's circle back to Ott for a moment. So as I've mentioned before, this is going to be a rainbow deck. And taking a look at Ott's abilities, it's going to be pretty clear why this will be important for your deck. Enter ability, put up to 2 target Signy without a guard from your trash to your enter zone. Auto, at the beginning of your attack phase, target Signy on your field get plus 5,000 until the end of turn. And action once a game, put 7 Signy that do not share a class from your enter zone into your trash. Put all Signy on your opponent's field into their owner's enter zone, and then enter charge 2. So, what this is allowing you to do is, with her enter ability, you are going to be able to pick 2 Signy that hopefully have different classes and put them into your enter zone, and then be able to activate your once a game ability. So, the tricky thing that we found with building this deck is how on earth can you try to build up throughout the game an enter zone that is completely varied in its classes. There's a lot of very popular Signy that have similar classes, so we had to get a little bit creative with how we were going to do this. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the cards that we chose to build our deck with. Over here, we've got our level 1s. Of course, you never want to forget your guards down in the corner. Those are always going to be a staple. But we've got your Mirai Jade Beauty, Bronze Natural Crystal, Haket Azure Angel, Parajulius, and Hydras. Let's go through these one by one, shall we? With Mirai Jade Beauty. Now I think this is a new one. If not, it just came out in the recent set. It hasn't seen a lot of play from what I have been able to witness, but it's going to be excellent in this deck for one very specific reason. Let's take a look at the card. It says, this Signy cannot be vanished by the effects of your opponent's level 1 Signy. So that's great. It can't be remelled, which is really nice, especially when you're going up against super aggressive decks. But the enter ability is even more important, which says this Signy gains a color of target Lyrig on your field until the end of turn. And as we saw with Worlds Reverse, once a turn, when a Signy enters your battlefield, you can choose one of the following based on its color. So when you're playing a Mirai, you can literally pick just whatever ability you want, and then say it's blue or red or just the regular color it is, which is green, depending on your needs for that turn. So we definitely want to see 4 Mirai in this deck. It's going to be a great choice. For Bronze Natural Crystal, it's it's our multi of the deck. There's only 2 in there, but nobody would be mad at multi. Again, this is playing into the piece that is the mainstay of the deck, because once again, you can pick between red and blue. So if you want a little bit of removal, you got your red. You want a little bit of draw, you got your blue, depending on what you want to do. Speaking of blue and draw, we've got Haket. Its ability is enter, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put any number of them on the bottom of your deck and any number at the rest on the top of your deck in any order. So what we've got here is basically a free Haniel, especially if you're going to be drawing a card. If you put out Haket, if you put out Haket first on your battlefield. So you're going to be able to do a lot of really nice hand fixing and deck fixing between the draw ability and the filtering ability that she gives you. So this is another one that we haven't seen a whole lot of play in other decks, but it's going to fit really nicely in this deck. Next up we got Parajulius. This is a nice little green staple. Auto, whenever this Signy attacks, if 1 or more cards were moved from your deck to your enter zone this turn, you may pay 1 green, 1 anything. If you do, banish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 8,000 or less. Not bad for a level 1 with 2,000 power, I'll tell you that. And especially if Parajulius is going to be coming into your battlefield first, based off the piece's ability, of course you're going to be enter charging, which will then activate this, and then you can pay the additional 2 if you want to remove something 8,000 or less. That's going to be a really interesting interaction in this deck, and we'll get into the importance of red versus green removal in a moment. So coming up with Hydra's Natural Planet, level 1, Signy with 3,000 power, constant as long as there are 2 or more level 1 Signy in your trash. This Signy gets plus 4,000 power. This one is good. It might not pop off all the time, but its life burst is really excellent. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, reveal a Signy from among them, and add it to your hand or put it onto your field, put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. It's the same life burst as Haniel. So this is going to be another sticky Hydra's, or a sticky level 1 Signy that's a little bit harder to get rid of, especially if you can pull off that pump, which with as many level 1 Signys as we have, and because you will be paying a lot of enter costs, it's likely that you will be able to get Hydra's off, but again, the life burst is one of the more important parts of this Signy because we love a Haniel style life burst. Coming up with our level 2s, you can see that we have a very tight selection of level 2s. Oh my goodness, guys, I cannot talk today, I'm so sorry. Of course, we have our 4 Lancelot staples. My goodness, will we ever not play this card? I don't think so. So, oh, there's the train. So with Lancelot, of course, many of you are familiar and very fond of Lancelot. Enter, pay 1, vanish target Signy on your opponent's field, 5,000 or less. So the reason why we've included Lancelot, aside from it being a very good card, is with our World's Reverse ability, we can basically get this as a 2-for-1 removal. And what's more with, sorry, I should pause for train, but what's great about Lancelot is with World's Reverse, I swear to God.
I'm gonna go yell at that train for you. I'll be right back, okay?
Thank you. I feel like I'm stuck in a nightmare. Sorry, hold on a second, guys.
There's gotta be someone at the train tracks. It has to be that.
I can't get a word out.
Ancient surprise. Boo 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 boo.
The train's excited about Ancient Surprise too. Alright, let's get into this! Why is Lancelot so good in this deck? Let me tell you. With the ability of World's Reverse, you can essentially get a 2-for-1 out of each Lancelot you play, as long as it is the first card that enters your field, your turn. So what I mean by that is the typical card for Lancelot vanishes 5,000 or less. World's Reverse, with the additional payment for its red ability, is 8,000 or less. So you can pay 1 when it enters to vanish 8,000 or less, and then because there's an additional enter ability with Lancelot, you can pay it again for 5,000 or less. That is fantastic! I love me some solid removal, don't you? Of course. So moving on, we've got Akufuku and Folklore. These are kind of the same card. If you guys watched our video on the top 10 life bursts, you'll realize that we put these in the same sort of category. So with Akufuku, because it's green, it'll be activating your Energy Charge, and with Folklore, because it's blue, it will be activating your draw. But of course, the main appeal of these cards being in your deck is because they are highly defensive. They're level 2 and they're 10,000s, which means that they're pretty big for being in your second to second and a half turn. But of course, we're here for the life bursts on these guys. So Folklore, down up to 2 target Signy on your opponent's field, draw a card. Excellent. It can totally, like, it can pretty much stop your opponent's attack phase, like, in the tracks, plus you get to draw a card. And then with Akufuku, you enter charge 1, and then you do not take damage from your opponent's level 3 or less Signy this turn. So once again, we're using our life burst to be more defensive and build up for our next turns. That is our level 2 lineup. Let's see what we've got in store for level 3. Alright, so level 3. Look at all this green! This is where all the green's been hiding out in the deck. We've got Azathoth, Osagitsune, Amino Acid, Newton, who's new, and Influen D-type Dre. So Azathoth, this one I'm actually really happy to be having in the new Ott deck, because Azathoth is actually Att's secret rare Signy. You can see that there is the Team Ancient Surprise logo on it. So this was actually released with the when the deck first came out, and it plays very well into Ott's ability. Reading through it, we've got Auto with the team ability. At the beginning of your attack phase, if this Signy's power is 15,000 or more, you may pay 2 green. If you do, vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with 10,000 or more. The additional auto, whenever this Signy attacks, if the total number of Signy classes in your trash is 7 or more, enter charge 1. So going back to the new Ott that we're going to be playing with, she pumps on the attack phase a Signy for 5,000 plus, and we're always trying to build up the Ender Zone to have 7 different Signy classes to activate her ability. If we were to have Azathoth on the field and activate Ott's ability, then the second auto ability of Azathoth would be activated and you would be able to enter charge an additional 1. It's pretty good. It's very synergistic, so that's why there's 4 of these in the deck. Next, we've got Osagitsune. You guys will be familiar with this one. Whenever this Signy attacks, if you move 1 or more cards from your deck into your Ender Zone this turn, you may pay 1 green, 1 anything. If you do, vanish target Signy on your opponent's field 12,000 or more. Enter ability, up to 2 other target Signy get plus 5,000 until end of turn. So again, that's very synergistic. It really plays into some of the overall themes of this deck. So we've got 3 of a kind in here because we're building a little bit heavier off of the Azathoth, plus some of the other just green removal that we have in the deck. But Osagitsune actually does play into Azathoth very well, so these guys are kind of a match made in heaven right here. Next up, we've got Amino Acid, Natural Bacteria Queen. We've got 2 of a kind in here. Constant, if the Signy would get minus power by an opponent's effect, it gets plus that amount instead. Constant, during your turn, other Signy on your field get plus 5,000. So this one is a really great choice for this deck. I know that it doesn't seem like it might be the most synergistic green, and you wouldn't be wrong with that observation. However, what's great about this isn't so much the constant, if it gets minus, it gets plus that amount instead, but the constant underneath it, which of course would pump up Azathoth as well as like just other Signy in general. When you're getting into your like later turn with this deck, so like level 3s, they're going to be coming out a little bit more regularly, but you're trying to really wall out around like turn 4 to 5, then being able to pump up like your 5s, your 8s, your 10s, pumping up your 12s, so you just have these like massive walls that the opponent has to play around, which is going to be a staple of the rest of the meta coming up, then this is a really good support card as well. However, this one also has a life burst. Enter charge 1, the next time you would take damage from the Signy, instead you do not take that damage. So again, very defensive, and of course building up our Enter Zone again from either having played the Ott's ability or trying to build back up to it. For Newton, this one's a new one. Look at her. She's so cute. We love it. Auto, at the beginning of your attack phase, if the total level of Larig on your field is even, add up to 1 target Signy from your Enter Zone to your hand. Enter. If the total level of Larig on your field is odd, enter charge 1. Those are weird words, aren't they? It's a very unique card. Also comes with a life burst, vanish target up Signy in your opponent's field, or enter charge 1. So obviously the life burst is going to be a pull for this card. The text on the card is interesting, but really the reason why this card is in the deck is it is a level 3 green, 10,000, with the Idle Tone Wisdom, which is one of a kind, and if we're looking to vary the amount of Enter going into our Enter Zone, you gotta pick out some really special classes and make sure that you can to make sure that you can hit Ott's ability at least once a game. So that's really the main draw for Newton, but her abilities are interesting, and if you want to use it, then you can. The next one down, we've got Influendi type Dre. Level 3 Signy, 12,000 power. This one's got Harmony for blue, so don't forget to tap when it enters the field. Auto, whenever this Signy attacks, you may pay 3 green, 3 anything. If you do, vanish up to 2 target Signy on your opponent's field with power 10,000 or more. Auto once a turn. When this Signy becomes the target of your opponent's ability or effect, draw a card and enter charge 1. So all the abilities on this card are again, very synergistic with the total direction of the deck, which is always a welcome theme in mid-range. So the whole, like, whenever the Signy attacks, you may pay 6 things, that's intense. That is very expensive. That would be one of those things that's kind of a last resort, like maybe the game's going super long or you just don't quite have the type of variation that you need, but you have the color spread to be able to pull this off. So this is a one of the deck because, again, it's not, you probably don't want to run more than one of these because it's a little bit of a glass cannon and everything's very conditional and expensive. But again, the good thing about this, it's a level 3, it's 12,000, when the stuff goes off, it goes off. But again, the more important part is its class, which is Wartone Venom. Again, a very unique Signy class, so if this one ends up in your Enter Zone, it's only going to help you try to get Ott's ability off. So let's take a look at the total class spread. So here we've got Aquatic Beast, Jewel, Primal, Beauty, blah 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 blah. We've got everything. Basically, the way that we've built this deck is as long as you have a different card in your Enter Zone, you will be good. Basically, there's just, as you can see here, there's only, 4 Primal, only 4 Beauty, only 4 Brave, only 4 Labyrinth, and they're probably all the same card. So as long as you have a different card, like there's no two-of-a-kind cards in your Enter, then you should be good to go. The other way that we've spread out the Signy in this is we've got 15 blue, 21 green, and 10 for removal. So obviously the main thing that we're going to want to do in this deck is to Enter Charge, just so that we can build up to Ott's ability, although it's not, you know, it's not the main way that you will win the game, but it will be the thing that is sort of a deciding factor, and it's gonna be the thing that you're building up to the entire game. So obviously with green, that's the main color that we want to add into the deck. Next up is blue for the draw. What you're really going to be trying to look for is Signy that either are really bulky and defensive or have removal. So that's going to be your red card so that you can play off of your World's Reversal, or you're going to try and find green cards, which brings me to why we only have 10 cards for removal. Or sorry, 10 red cards for removal. Typically, when people think of red, they think of that being the removal color. But as we went through this deck, I'm sure you realized that there's a distinct pattern of green having the ability to pay for removal. So there's actually 2 different types of removal in this deck. You have your typical red removal, and then you have your green removal. And then blue kind of makes up the middle ground, being hand regeneration, deck fixing, and defense. So that's kind of how this deck is put together, which I'm really excited about. I've had a lot of fun playing it so far. And honestly, I can't wait to play her. Like, look at her, she's so beautiful. And I think her abilities are really interesting too. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this deck stacks up against some of the more intense decks coming out. I'm sure if you've watched any of the previous deck techs that have come out this week, you know what I'm talking about. But as for me, this is the deck that I am going to be playing. So, with that all said, I hope you guys enjoyed this special surprise deck set by yours truly, Tiffany of the Life Birth Podcast. And let me know if you guys have any questions in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what your thoughts are of this deck. If there's anything I missed, or if you have got different suggestions for cards that might be a good idea for the deck, please let me know in the comment section down below. You know we read all of your comments and can't wait to talk to you, fellow selectors. In the meantime, may you guys always flip a life burst. See you guys next time. Bye!